So, because of being thrown out, I spent 3 hours visiting with that family. And the granddad, who was retired Navy intelligence, I think, very intelligent man, good, told me how he had called hundreds of times and could document it. And had got voicemail one time and never got his calls returned. The aunt, who had a great income, and her husband had a great income, who had stepped up, but somebody has to be the family. And I could see they were perfect. And then there was a brother who was disabled and had young kids, and he was at home all the time. And all of them said, we don't know if our relatives did anything to these kids or not, but we're here for the kids. And together, we could have taken great care of them. We wanted to take great care of them. And the answer we got back, and I'm so busy, I've never been able to investigate it further. The answer we got back is from DCFS, is we called them and they didn't return our call.
That's a lie.
After 8 days. Well, I have no doubt that that's true. But, that it is a lie. But regardless, because I mean, this guy, I don't have any doubt he called hundreds of times. They were concerned, obviously, about their family. Y'all know that. But it's not that the people at the top of the agency didn't care. We have counties that work well. We have counties that don't work well. We have problems that have to be fixed. So anyway, the judge, to his credit that day, placed with relatives. But it took 6 months. And so where we've got legislators who will get involved, we've got to get them involved. We've got to recognize state abuse. As I talked about in that case, that often, it's not that people don't abuse kids, but often what we do, and I would have never seen that before I got involved, and you can't expect other people or other legislators to see it until it's explained to them. You can beat on them, you can scream at them, but until you can cause them to see it in a way that they can understand it, that we do more harm often than was done in a home, even where there's mild abuse.
Amen.
Because one of the things that we do, because some of you just detest foster parents, I want to tell you, foster parents also get mistreated and also don't have a voice. And because sometimes they'll speak up for the child or whatever, we've got and we have a lot of wonderful, I know some of you don't think so, but there's a lot of wonderful people that work within this system, but we have some bullies. And because it's not transparent, they get away with some things. And we'll move these kids around like playing cards. Well, we know, when we've had the experts come testify, we know it's traumatic to take the kids out of their home the first time.
Yes.
But we know it's traumatic every time we move them.
Exactly.
And the more we do that, the more long-term damage that there is. And so when I say we've got to recognize state abuse, we've got to recognize that taking kids. And we did, I want to tell you, the fact that we took 1,000 less kids this year is because we did recognize, as an agency and as a state, that taking kids is not always the answer. So, again, we have a long ways to go, but I want you to recognize that although you may be suffering, there is progress being made. Breaking up families when it's unnecessary. Transparency. I will probably introduce a bill before the session's over to open up the child welfare courts entirely. I would doubt I will get that done this session. Because the kickback on that is, you're going to have all of these children and families, dirty laundry out in front of in the newspaper, in TV, on the whole state. Well, number one, the newspapers and TV stations don't want to report that. They care about this issue, and they do not want to sensationalize those things. That's number one. Number two, if we pass such a bill, we will have a loophole, and some judges will abuse it, okay? But it's better to have most of the apple than none of the apple, is we will leave a loophole that judges can close a hearing if there is sexual abuse, etc., some reason why they see that it needs to be closed. But part of the reason that we have the problems we have is because it's dark, because it's not transparent the way the rest of our system is transparent. And it doesn't protect children and families. It protects wrongdoers. It protects a judge that's doing the wrong thing. It protects a caseworker, an investigator, and a DCFS attorney that's doing the wrong thing. And so we've got to have more transparency. I also will be rerunning our Parents' Rights Bill, which says if you do certain things, let your kids walk to the park and back, walk home from school, we don't investigate. If that gets turned in, we just don't investigate. We would have, if we'd have passed it 2 years ago, we'd have been the first state in the country to pass it. We got it through the Senate. We didn't get it through the House. Idaho, they call it, because they're out west, and I like the name, they call it the free-range parenting bill. And Idaho was the first state in the nation to pass it. Because what we've done is we've caused young parents to be afraid to parent. You know, and when we got this in the House committee where we failed, I actually had a state representative who's a former county judge spoke up and told me and told us how he had his grandchild in the back seat of the car in a child safety seat and was headed home, and his wife called him and said, "Would you pick up some milk?" Now this wasn't August, okay? This was good weather. And he said, I started to go to the convenience store, lock the car, and go in for 2 minutes and get milk and come back out. And he said, I better not. Folks, we've gone crazy in this country. We have lost our minds in that country, in this country. That is not child abuse. And if it were, my parents should be under the prison. Okay? Because, you know, they would shop for furniture and leave my sister and I in the car. And they would shop for groceries and leave my sister and I in the car. Of course, we rode in the back of pickups too. But and bicycles without helmets. But, you know, all those things are, and you couldn't investigate that either, by the way. You couldn't investigate somebody, a kid riding a bicycle without a helmet. That's not child abuse. That's where we're do-gooders are being nosy. Okay. These laws were not passed for that. These laws were passed for people who were burning kids, okay, who were locking kids in closets and starving kids. And we've got to stop those kind of things. And we've got to punish people who do those things and deal with those kind of things. But we can't treat everybody else like they're guilty. We cannot act like this is Germany in World War II. Okay, and this is a police state.
You mean we have to stop acting like that?
We have to stop acting like that. Okay, and so we have to retract the net some. So thank you for caring. You know the reason. Think about this though. The reason so many of you are here and that you care is because you've run afoul of the system and you found out what it does. If you hadn't, be kind to other people, because if you hadn't, you might not be listening either, right? And so be kind to other people and realize that they haven't seen it yet. And so you're going to, if you come across, as passionate as we are, if we come across as a fringe group, they're not going to listen to us. And it's hard when you're passionate, when you've been mistreated, not to do that. But you've got to try to explain it to them in a way that they can get it, that they can understand that if it were their kids, how they would feel. You had a statement.